Welcome to the Projects tutorial series for ProTracker Advantage. During this tutorial, we will be discussing the process and use of time tracking for the projects feature in Advantage. Tracking time is a valuable feature in that it allows you to track time expended on work that you perform for a client. In order to track time expended, you must first create a project in which to record the time. You can then create tasks, appointments, reviews, and project reports to document the work performed for a client. There are several reasons why time expended on projects should be measured. Tracking time allows you to produce invoices for projects billed on an hourly basis, create a fee estimate for hourly projects, and measure individual productivity on a project. Keep in mind that you always have the option of using projects in Advantage without tracking time. We will begin by selecting a recently created project for the client sample. From the client profile, click on the Projects tab. From the Project Summary subtab, we will double-click on an established project such as Financial Planning Checkup. Double-clicking on a project will bring you to the Project Detail screen. Halfway down the screen is the Project Activities area. Let's double-click on a task such as Investigate 529 Plan for the client state. The Edit a Task dialog box will appear. Look to the column of buttons on the right side. Close to the bottom of the column, notice the Start Timer button. To begin tracking time expended on the task, click the Start Timer button. Notice the button now says Stop Timer. To finish, we will click on the Save and Close button at the top. Notice in the upper right corner of the screen the Timer On button in yellow. Let's double-click the Timer On button to view the elapsed time running on the task. The Activity Timer dialog box will appear. Look close to the middle of the dialog box to view the elapsed time. Notice that the time is still running. If the timer is on, there are two ways to stop the timer. Since we are currently in the Activity Timer dialog box, we could stop the timer by clicking on the Stop Timer button at the bottom. Alternatively, you could click on the Stop Timer button from the main toolbar, denoted by the hourglass icon. The Activity Timer dialog box will once again appear. We can then stop the timer by clicking on the Stop Timer button at the bottom. Look to the upper right corner of the screen and notice that the Timer On button no longer appears. This indicates that the timer for the task has been stopped. Also look to the main toolbar and notice that the Stop Timer button now says Start Timer. You may find it useful to view the time records kept for a project activity. You may also find it useful to adjust the elapsed time logged against a project and its component activities. Advantage allows you to adjust a time record manually. To demonstrate, let's double-click on the tasks that we were just working on entitled Investigate 529 Plan. The Edit a Task dialog box will appear. On the lower right side of the dialog box, click on the Time and Billing button. The Edit Time and Billing dialog box will appear. Let's double-click on the time record recently recorded for this task. The Edit Activity Time dialog box will appear. Notice that the Start and Stop date and time fields have been filled in. Let's pretend that you forgot to stop the timer running for a task. In that case, you would need to adjust the time logged against the task. Let's manually enter the elapsed minutes actually expended on the task in the elapsed minutes field. Let's change the elapsed minutes to 60 minutes. To finish, click on the Save and Close button. Notice on this dialog box that the billable time on the time record now says 60 minutes or 1 hour. The billable field logs the time expended on a project activity that will be invoiced and billed. The non-billable field logs the time expended on a project activity that will not be billed. Let's finish by clicking on the Save and Close button at the bottom and clicking on the Save and Close button on the upper right. Look to the Project Activities area and notice the billable field. The total billable hours and non-billable hours for the project are listed here. You may also find it necessary to enter an accumulated time record after an activity has been completed. To demonstrate, look over to the left side of the screen to the Assistant area and double-click on the Add Time option. The Add Time dialog box will appear. The Project field will default to the project we are currently working on, Financial Planning Checkup. If you would like to create a time record for a task that has already been completed, enter the New Task in the Task field. Let's enter a task name such as Review Living Will. In the Minutes field, enter the amount of time the task took to complete. Let's enter 75 minutes. To finish, click on the Save button at the bottom. Look to the Project Activities area and notice that the task, Review Living Will, with the elapsed time of 75 minutes or 1.25 hours, has been added to the list. Also notice that the task has a check mark next to it, indicating that the task is complete. This makes sense because we added the accumulated time for the task after the task had been completed. It may also be helpful to see a more global view of the elapsed time for all projects recorded for a client. To demonstrate, let's click on the Project Summary tab for John's sample. The Time in Hours field displays the time logged for each project listed. The Progress field lists the percentage of the completed tasks for the project. It measures how complete the project is based on the ratio of closed tasks to the total number of tasks. To conclude this tutorial, remember that with time tracking, you can track your time on a project, adjust elapsed time, and enter an accumulated time record after the fact. If you need any additional information about time tracking on projects, press F1 from any screen to obtain ProTracker Advantage help. For more information about ProTracker Advantage, contact us